Hello friends, my name is Koolio and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode here for LANGRISSER M, I'm going to be talking to you guys about faction buffs. Now, I'm sure if you guys have been playing the game or checking out Reddit forums and things like that, you've probably heard people talking about these faction buffs, but you may not know exactly what they are or where to get them. So in this video, specifically, I'm going to teach you what faction buffs are, where to get them, and why you want them. Also, just a little bit of a heads up, I decided to do like 1 or 2 more summons yesterday after I did the video, the guild video, which by the way, I think we're at like 45 members. There's probably more invites right now, but we're at like almost the max guild size, which is amazing, and it's been a lot of fun. But I did get Bernhardt, which is going to be an amazing character to show off faction buff skills. Now, exactly what are faction buff skills? Well, let me go ahead and teach you what factions are. Now, if you go over to your character's detail screen, just above the stat option, there's these little icons. They're kind of set away, and it's something that the game doesn't really tell you what they are, but just above your stats, there's these 2 little icons. Some characters have 1, some have 3, but it signifies what faction they belong to. So for Bernhardt, he is part of the Empire's Honor, and you can see all the characters that you've collected and all the characters that belong to this specific faction, and he also belongs to the Dark Cycle faction. Now, these are really major important things to remember heading into the late endgame. Now, faction buff skills don't really come into play until about level 35. Now, there are specific heroes that have faction buffs. Now, where to get these is you have to go to these specific heroes and level them up to the desired class that unlocks that faction buff. So, for example, let's go ahead and take a look at Bernhardt. If I go over to the upgrade class section, and currently I'm upgrading him towards the Emperor because I want to unlock that faction buff skill. So clicking on the faction or the Emperor class specifically, and then looking up at the top skills, you can see one of them right here. If I go ahead and click on that, it's called the Imperial Power, and before the description, it will specifically say faction buff. Now for this one, it's an activated skill, which gives an attack and defense increase significantly for all allies with the honor of the Empire. So any ally that you have, for example, let's take Leon. Leon belongs to the honor of the Empire. If he's on your team while you activate this, he will acquire that specific buff. Now this one gives a 20% increase to damage and an increase to attack and defense when battling against disadvantaged troops. So for example, he is a soldier, he's red faction, so if he goes up against someone green, a spearman, and attacks him, he's going to do an extra 20% damage on top of that. Now, these specific faction buffs last for 4 turns, but it also specifies that they cannot be stacked with other faction buffs. Now, you may be thinking, well, doesn't that kind of limit the kind of characters I can have on my team? So can I only have characters from that specific faction if I want to go through certain content that gets really difficult? Not necessarily. Let's say, for example, let's go ahead and take a look at the faction for the Empire's Honor. If I wanted to build a decent team and I could take some of the characters I already have, I could take Bernhardt, Imelda, and Vargas on my team. So I got a defender, attacker, and a buffer. But then 2 other characters I could have could belong to a different faction. Let's go ahead and take a look at Tiaras right here. She belongs maybe to the Princess faction. So I take her with me, and then maybe I could take Chris. I could take Chris on my team, or whoever ends up having a faction bonus could use that to power up my 2 other characters. So you can kind of mix and match it, but always remember that you want to make sure that you have at least 1 leader or 1 character that has that faction buff because they're extremely, extremely powerful. Now, like I said, getting into the later content for around level 35, most people at this point that have been playing the game fairly frequently. A lot of people, if you're not spending a lot of money, you're going to be around level 27 to 29. I think I'm around like level 27 or 28. Aren't going to have access to these faction buffs, but a lot of us are currently working towards that. Now, these faction buffs are incredibly important. I don't think she's got one. Let's go ahead and head back to Bernhardt. Now, there are only specific characters that have these specific buffs, so you're going to want to go ahead and collect some of these. And one last thing I do want to say in this video is some people are worried, okay, which path do I want to go down when I'm upgrading my character? For example here, Bernhardt, I believe that he'd be better as a brave character, but I'm going to level him up towards Emperor so I can specifically unlock that faction buff because I'm definitely going to need it in the higher tier dungeons and some of the higher tiered content. But then I can spend one of these gems up here, the rune stones, to go down a different path, but I will still keep that special abilities. Any abilities that you unlock for these classes, it will stay completely. Even if you switch to a different one, you still got those passive abilities. So you're gonna want to eventually unlock all the classes for a specific character when you get to the max level, but these runestones are really rare and you're only gonna get about 2 or 3 a month, so it's gonna take some time to level these characters up. And so there you go, water faction buffs. They're incredibly powerful buffs that you're definitely going to need when you get to end game. Where do you find them? You go down specific class trees and you'll be able to find the faction buffs because it'll specifically say. And then like I said, why do you need them? Well, there's going to be some really hard end game content that you definitely need these buffs. And do you need full teams from a specific faction? No, but make sure that if you are going to set up a team, minimum two factions, and make sure at least 2 heroes with faction buffs, because those buffs are really important. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date in the latest in LANGRISSER M. Alright guys, I'll see you next time.